We are meeting with our fourth session. It is audit evidence and audit procedures. Again, it is an important session in our beautiful auditing discussion. So basically, before you watch this webinar, so please go back and watch the video number 1, 2 and 3 because there is a flow of that I have been discussing, and also you have to do the question that I told at the previous the sessions. And so again, this is another important area, audit evidence and audit procedures, where I will be focusing on a bit on a practical application. So because in your BL5 paper, even though MCQ questions, so there will be certain practical application, practical questions, practical scenarios where you have to select the correct answer. Right. So before moving to the today's discussion, let's have a look on the chapter contents and how that is coming in the syllabus and what type of questions that would come in your examination. Right, session number 4, audit evidence and audit procedures. So basically in your BL syllabus structure, so if you look at the part E, fundamental of audit and assurance, that we have been discussing. Part D and E only we have been discussing first webinar, second webinar, third webinar and fourth webinar. So if you look at the part D and E, so basically chapter number 10 we discussed under the webinar number 1, that is introduction to assurance engagement. Then we discussed the part E, fundamental of audit and assurance 40%. There chapter number 12, risk assessment, we discussed the during the third webinar, and the second webinar we discussed the introduction to auditing, that is also part of the chapter number 10. So now, and chapter number 13 is a very small chapter where we talk about the audit planning and documentation, which I explained during the webinar number 3. So I will not have a time to discuss in detail the documentation part, but that is not a very difficult area. So you can look at the study text and try to understand the documentation and audit planning. So because audit planning was already discussed under the risk assessment. So but one of the important area in this beautiful auditing, so why I say beautiful auditing, so you know this subject is a very interesting subject if you know the theory correct way, because it's something that you can't, rather you memorize, so you will be able to think and write most of the question. That will be the easy approach in getting through the examination of this, and that is a good foundation for you to move to the CL1 as well as SL1 as well as the practicing management module, the professional practice module at the Viva stage. So now today's our chapter is chapter number 14, audit evidence and audit procedures. So I will not have time to discuss everything, but I will try to summarize in a bit practical way for you to have a flow of the auditing and have a good understanding of the basic principles, and then you can move into the next session, audit finalization and reporting. Right. So then if you look at the type of question that would come in your examination, that this is one of the question that I have taken from the pilot paper, question number 30. It's a very simple question. Audit evidence should be space to enable the auditor to reach an opinion on the finance statement audited. Which of the following order of words are the most appropriate to fill the above blanks? So very simple theoretical question. Then if you look at the question number 27 of the pilot paper, so you are the senior in charge of the audit of Ratnapura Gems Private Limited. Which of the following audit tests provide the most reliable audit evidence relating to the value of gem stock appearing in the statement of financial position of the company as of 31st March 2019. So it's again, this is something which now first question which we look at, question number 30 is a theoretical question. Question number 27 of the pilot paper is a really practical question. So that is why I am explaining today. Not only just knowing the theory in the auditing application, the certain level of practical applications will be tested in your BL5 paper, right? Not in-depth analysis or in-depth application like CL1, but there will be a certain level practical application for a certain extent. Then if you look at the revision kit, I have told you, so you have to keep in your mind, so you need to have the pilot paper, you need to have the mock paper, you need to have the revision kit. Always whenever you do a chapter, so you have to go and do the questions. Unless you do the question, you will not be able to identify your weakness and what type of level will be, what type of testing will be made by the examiner. So it will be difficult for you to understand if you only just look at the theoretical side. So if you look at this question, the auditor of GPLC is performing audit procedures to confirm the company's ownership of motor vehicle. Which of the following would provide the most persuasive evidence of these, right? This is again application side. This is auditing. There are two things: theory, application. This is the application question. These are not there in the study text. These are not there in the auditing standard. These are little bit application as an auditor or audit trainee. So you have to think and write or think and select. So today what I will be focusing with you is to develop that mindset. I will be trying to put the foundation into how to think in a practical live example to select a correct answer. Rather memorizing, I think that will be better, because in your examination what type of practical scenario would come, we don't know. But that is not going to the very, I mean, if you look at, if you have 50 question paper, it won't to be a practical scenarios, maybe sometimes 10-15, but that 10-15 question would come, not the entire 50 will be practical, but at least to get that 10 question, attend the 10 question properly. So if you develop the thinking pattern, it will become very easy, right? So have a look on here. So now, and very peaceful mind. So if you can remember, I was discussing and I have been discussing the auditing flow during the webinar number 1, 2, 3. This is fourth webinar. So again, let me to quickly draw the auditing flow and show you where we are in the stage, because I always believe that the systematic learning will help you to get through the examination, right? So let's draw again the auditing flow quickly and then come to the today's discussion, right? So if you can remember where we were, right? So where we were, so this is my basic diagram in introducing the auditing. Here is the management, here is the shareholder, here is the practice in chartered accountant as an auditor, and management is preparing the financial statement to the shareholders, but shareholders do not trust the management. So therefore shareholder goes and appoint a chartered accountant to come and check the financial statement prepared by the management and to give a report. This is what we call auditing. So which we learned. What is auditing? The management is preparing the financial statement and giving to the shareholder, but the shareholder do not trust the management. Therefore shareholder goes and appoint a third party person called chartered accountant. So look here, my management has prepared the finance statement, but I don't believe that. Can you go and check and give me a report? Very simple. That is what called the auditing. So in auditing, this report we discuss 100% cannot be provided. So that means 100% assurance cannot be provided actually. So you can't provide the 100% assurance. So basically we give a reasonable assurance. So these fundamentals which we have discussed. These fundamentals we have discussed webinar number 2. So I hope that you might have already watched the webinar number 2. So basically, so number 1 step in auditing what we discuss is agree in terms, right? So it was discussed in briefly, right? Then we came to the next level of that is the first side of the auditing. Then we came to the audit planning side. This is basic principles. Right. Then we came to the audit planning. It's the comprehensive one, which we discussed during the last webinar. So there we discussed basically under the audit planning, if you can remember. Number 1 we discuss understanding the business. This is one of the important thing in auditing flow. So where we discuss how to understand, what to understand, why we should understand. If you can remember, we discussed during the last webinar, right? Then we came to the next step in auditing, that is called risk assessment, which is one of the fundamental in auditing and difficult to understand. Risk assessment. I'm not going to repeat those things where we discuss, if you can remember, the risk, inherent risk, control risk, MMR, DR, how those are connected with the practical example. So I discussed with you the last webinar, please go and check on those. And then audit response, right? So audit response, so that means what are the audit procedures, which we discussed the webinar number 3. So this is the second stage in the auditing, so which we have already covered in our webinar series. We have covered this part and this part, right? So today's our discussion is audit procedures. Right? And our last session is the audit reporting. Right. So if I summarize again for you to have a very much good, with the flow of information which you have been learning now, right. So this is the fundamentals of auditing, and these two parties agree the terms, and the chartered accountant plan the work. Chartered accountant, he is planning the work, what I am going to do, because I can't do the 100% verification. So chartered accountant cannot do the 100% verification of the client information. So therefore, chartered accountant has to plan what he is going to check. So that how that planning is done, we discussed that during the previous webinar, right? So that after planning is done, now what you are going to do? Now we are going to do the work. So you have completed the planning as a chartered accountant. You have completed the planning. Now we are going to do the work. What you are doing in the client place, or what we are doing as auditor, is called audit procedures. What you are going to respond, called audit procedures, right? So audit procedures mean, now very simply, if you understand, I will explain in detail. So later, this auditor, when this auditor gives an opinion to the shareholder, he need to have some type of evidences. Now, if I am to, now let's say you are, Samanmali will say, so you are coming and telling me for me to give a character certificate on you. If I am to give a good or bad or moderate or negative or positive, whatever the character certificate, I need to have a basis. I need to have evidence, right? So, and similarly, if you go to a court, if you file a case against someone, we will say traffic case, the traffic police should have the evidence to present to the court that you have done something wrong. And also the court judge need to have those evidences to support his conclusion. Similarly, the chartered accountant, for him to give an opinion to the shareholder, so he needs to have evidence. Without evidence, he can't say these financial statements are good or the financial statements are bad, but the financial statements are free from material misstatement or contains material misstatement. So we cannot say. For us to say that financial statements contains material misstatement or not, we need to have evidence. What is meant by evidence? Which we are going to discuss today, right? So now you have some basic understanding. So under audit procedures, we basically talk two things, right? Audit evidence, theory side, right? And audit procedures, practical side. So what is theory and practical? Theory and practical means, so you have to know theoretically what is the meant by audit evidence, why the audit evidences are gathered. So when the chartered accountant is going to use these evidences, and so what are the procedures, general procedures available to gather the evidences. Those are very general matters, right? So those need to be learned under the audit evidences theory. Then the second scenario is audit procedures practical. What is that? Now you need to understand like this. In this finance statement, what is there? You need to be a very good understanding The chartered accountant gives an opinion to the shareholders on what? On finance statement, not on the company. So that means in order for us to say that the finance statements are good, we need to have evidence. What is meant by evidence? What type of evidences? What is there in this finance statement? If you look at the finance statement, what is there? Statement of financial position, statement of comprehensive income, statement of changes in equity, statement of cash flow and the other notes. Those are the 5 things available in this financial statement. If you go further in detail, the statement of financial position contains, there are many items. Debtors, creditors, PP, investment, deferred tax, stated capital, trade creditors or the retirement benefit obligation, there are many. If you go to the statement of comprehensive income, there are many income, expenses, administrative expenses, distribution expenses, other expenses, income tax, finance cost, finance income, other income. Likewise, there are many. If you go to the disclosures, going concern disclosures, subsequent event disclosures, property plant and equipment disclosures, investment property disclosures, there are many. So, now what's going to happen here? As a chartered accountant, you are gathering evidences mean what? You are gathering evidences mean, let's say if there is a bank balance, we'll take up example, if there is a bank balance in our accounts, there is a bank account of rupees 10,000, right? So if there is a rupees 10,000 bank balance, it is inside this financial statement. It is inside of this financial statement. Now, you have to be satisfied. In order to tell to the shareholders that this 10,000 does not contain any misstatement, you need to have evidence. Think in a practical way. Okay, bank balance, there is a 10,000 rupees in your books of accounts. What the audit procedure that you want to perform? Or what the evidence you need to have? What do you think? විනාඩියක් කරන් හිතන්න. අපේ කම්පැනි එකේ ෆයිනාන්ස් ස්ටේට්මන්ට් මත තමයි අපි විගණනයක් ෆයිනාන්ස් ස්ටේට්මන්ට් මත තමයි අපි වාර්තාපත් දෙන්න යන්නේ. ඒ ෆයිනාන්ස් ස්ටේට්මන්ට් ඇතුලේ තියෙන්නේ මොනවද? බැලන්ස් ෂීට්, P&L ඔය ටික තියෙන්නේ. ඕක ඇතුලේ තියෙනවා හරි කියලා කියන තරම් අපිට සාක්ෂි මොනවා හරි තියෙන්න ඕනේ. ඒකට අපි කියනවා විගණන සාක්ෂි කියලා. ඒ සාක්ෂි රැස් කිරීමේ ක්‍රමයට අපි කියනවා විගණන ක්‍රියාපටිපාටි කියලා. සාක්ෂි රැස් කිරීමේ ක්‍රමය තමයි විගණන ක්‍රියාපටිපාටි නැත්නම් Audit Procedures කියලා කියන්නේ. දැන් මම මේක උදාහරණයක් ඔයාලට හරි සරලව මේක කිව්වා. මෙන්න මේ company එකේ finance statement කියන එක ඇතුලේ ඔක ඇතුලේ තියෙන බලන් inventory, debtors, creditors ඔක අපි කියන හැමදේම තියෙන්න පුළුවන්. ඔක එක උදාහරණයක් මම ගත්තා bank balance කියලා රුපියල් 10000ක් තියෙනවා. මේ bank balance කියන එක හරිද වැරදිද කියලා කියන මේක ඇතුලේ කියන්න ඕනේ දැන් අපි. ඒතර මේක හරිද වැරදිද කියන එක අපිට මතයකට එන්න අපිට මොන හරි සාක්ෂි ඕනේ. නිකන් හිතන්න විනාඩියක් කරන් මේ bank balance සම්බන්ධයෙන් අපිට ගත හැකි හොඳම සාක්ෂිය මොකක්ද? අපිට පුළුවන් ගොඩක් දේවල් කරන්න පුළුවන්. ඒ කරන හැම දෙයකටම අපි කියන විගණන ක්‍රියාපටිපාටි කියලා. We can do so many things. One is you go and ask from the company. Company එකෙන් අහන්න පුළුවන්. Company එකෙන් confirmation එකක් ගන්න පුළුවන්. ආ මේ 10,000 හරි කියලා. හරි. එහෙම නැත්නම් අපිට bank reconciliation එක ඉල්ලන් බලන්න පුළුවන්. එහෙම නැත්නම් අපිට bank statement එකක් එනවනේ. bank statement එක අරන් බලන්න පුළුවන්. මේ ඔක්කොම මොනවද? මේ ඔක්කොම evidences. මේවට තමයි කියන්නේ evidences කියලා. එහෙම නැත්නම් හොඳම evidence එක තමයි මේකේ. අපි බැංකුවට කියනවා ඔඩිටර් යවනවා ලියුමක් බැංකුවට මේ කම්පැනි එක මෙන්න මෙහෙම රයිට් ඔඩිටර් යවනවා මෙහෙම දැන් හිතන්නකො පාර්ශවයන් තුනක් නේ ඉන්නේ මෙතන ඉන්නවා මැනේජ්මන්ට් එක අපි තමු මෙතන බැංක් එක ඉන්නවා මෙතන ඔඩිටර් ඉන්නවා රයිට් ඒතර මැනේජ්මන්ට් එකේ books of accounts වල බැංක් කියලා 10,000 තියෙනවා there is a 10,000 rupees in the books of accounts of in the company. So now what auditor is writing a letter to the bank, right? Auditor is writing to the letter to the bank and asking, can you confirm whether my client will ABC Private Limited? Right? My client ABC Private Limited, whether he has a 10,000 rupees in your bank. මගේ සේවාදායකයාගේ රුපියල් 10,000ක් ඔබගේ බැංකුවේ තිබේද කියලා ලියුමක් යවනවා. බැංකුව අපිට කන්ෆර්ම් කරනවා ඔව් කියලා. එතකොට අර බැංකුවෙන් එන ලියුමට අපි කියනවා බැංක් කන්ෆර්මේෂන් එක කියලා. ඒ බැංක් කන්ෆර්මේෂන් එක තමයි හොඳම විගණන සාක්ෂිය බැංක් බැලන්ස් එකක් වෙරිෆයි කරන්න. So now bank confirmation is going to be the audit evidence. The calling bank confirmation process is called the audit procedure. You got the point? I hope that you are clear what I am trying to say. So here, so this is this type of procedures. So let's say this is for a bank. සමහර අය මෙතන පොඩි වරද්දගෙන තියෙනවා. Some people think this some of the audit firm also practice this in a wrong way. The letter to requesting bank to confirm to the auditor, that letter should be sent by whom? The letter should be sent by the auditor. People who are working in audit firm and all, I am telling the correct theory. Auditor should send the letter with the acknowledgement letter or a supporting letter from with the management. But practically some audit firm and certain scenarios, what would happen here, because this management is sending a letter to the bank to confirm to the auditor, which is not correct, right? So I hope that you are clear with this the basic explanation which I was trying to tell here, right? So what I was trying to explain here, basically you need to have a basic understanding audit evidence theory and the audit procedures practical side. So that is our today's topic. So I gave you a basic introduction to audit evidence. If I summarize again here, so in this particular section we discuss SLA US auditing standard 200 to 265. I am not going to write everything because I discussed previously. Here SLA US 300 to 450 we discussed here, and here we discuss SLA US 500 to 620, and here we discuss SLA US 700 to 810, right? So all these standards, only this which I have explained previously, but just to have a summary again where we are now. We are now at actually end of this our auditing webinar series in auditing. So you should be able to draw this diagram in your own. So if you can draw this diagram in your own, so believe me, so you have understanding of auditing. So because I have not explained you a very concept which are in depth, so I explain you with your very basic example which for you anybody can understand. So this is the basic principle, and then you agree the term, you plan the work, you decide what you are going to do, and now you are going to do the work. You are going to do in what? You are going to gather certain evidences to support your conclusion. That's it. How it is to be done is given in all these auditing standards, and then audit reporting, which will be the next webinar which we are going to discuss. Right, I am going to delete this one now, and one more thing, right? Before moving to the today's discussion, I want to explain you a important principles, right? So that is lifetime learning. So while you are watching these webinars, it's mandatory for you to read the study text, and also because webinar series we are covering the overall aspect, so you have to go into detail of the study text and the revision kit, and where possible, because to understand and remember the certain things, right, and also the theory aspect, right. So before moving to the audit evidence discussion, I want to explain you one of the fundamental principle for you to remember for the lifetime. Right, carefully listen now. If you are doing something else now, please stop all this and concentrate with me carefully. So you might have learned or you might have listened somewhere a word called financial statement assertions. Financial statement assertions. Have you heard this? What is this? Lifetime learning. Finance statement assertions. We learned even during the previous webinar, I told you there are finance statement assertions, something we have to remember. Now I am going to take you the time and explain that. Right? Listen me carefully. Finance statement assertions. අපි සිංහලෙන් මේකට කියනවා සදහුම් කියලා. So remembering in Sinhala is very difficult. So better for you to remember in English because those words are very difficult in Sinhala. Right? The finance statement assertions. I am going to give you a very basic example for the finance statement assertion. Let's say අපි තුමුකෝ යනවා මාකට් එකට. මාකට් එකට ගිහිල්ලා අඹ ගෙඩියක් ගන්නවා. මාකට් එකට ගිහිල්ලා අඹ ගෙඩියක් ගන්නවා. ඔය දෙල් කඳ පොළට යනවා කියලා. දෙල් කඳ පොළට ගිහිල්ලා කන අඹ ගෙඩියක්. දැන් මේ දවස්වල අඹ ගන්නනේ. අඹ ගෙඩියක් කරන්. දැන් මේ අඹ ගෙඩිය අපි අඹ ගෙඩි 5ක් විතර හොම අල්ලලා බලලා හොඳ ගෙඩියක් තෝරලා ගන්නවා. හරි. හොඳ ගෙඩියක් මම එක්සැම්පල් එක කියන්නේ හොඳට මතක තියෙන්න. මේ අඹ ගෙඩියක් හොඳට බලලා 5ක් විතර 10ක් විතර බලලා අඹ ගෙඩියක් අතර ගන්නවා. දැන් ඉතින් එකලා ගෙදර ගිහිල්ලා අඹ කපන පිහියක් කරා. අඹ කපන පිහියක් නෙමෙයි මොකක් හරි පිහියක් කරා. අඹ ගෙඩිය කපනවා. දැන් මාකට් එකෙන් ගන්නකොට අවුට් අපියරන්ස් එක සුපර්බ්. හරි. අපි તો අඹ ගෙඩි දෙකක් කරා යනවා කියලා. අඹ ගෙඩි දෙකක් කරා. සුපර්බ් අවුට් අපියරන්ස් එක. හරි. කියන්නේ ඉතින් ඩොට් එකක්වත් නැහැ. දැන් ගෙදර ගිහිල්ලා එක ගෙඩියක් කපනවා. බලාපොරොත්තු නොවුන දෙයක් ඇතුළ සම්පූර්ණයෙන්ම නරක වෙලා. අනිත් ගෙඩිය කපනවා. As expected, it's in very good condition. Now what happens? You look at the out appearance and you came a conclusion that this mango one is good one. But your conclusion has gone wrong in one circumstances. Right? That example remember, right? Remember that example. While I am explaining, try to link with that. ඒ කියන්නේ මේ අඹ ගෙඩියක් එළියෙන් බලලා මේ අඹ ගෙඩිය හොඳයිද වරකයිද කියන්න බෑ. You have to එකෙන් කියන්න උත්සාහ කරන්නේ යමක් අපි outer appearance එක බලලා හරි නැත්නම් surface එක බලලා හරි conclusion එකකට එන්න බෑ. මේක ඇතුළට යන්න ඕනේ කියන එක තමයි එතන අදහස් කරේ. Right. Keeping that mind. So now come to the financial statement, our diagram. Look at me very carefully. Right. Listen me very carefully. Right. So our basic diagram, try to understand. So this management is there, right, and shareholder is there. Okay, so management is there, shareholder is there. I'll delete this one also. Right now, this shareholder has invested. Let's say this shareholder has invested. This management is called ABC Private Limited. The company is ABC Private Limited, and the company and the shareholder is a two different people. So two different entities, business entity concept. So accordingly, the shareholders do not engage in the business activities. The shareholders appointed a person called management to steerboard to run the business activity. So now the concept here, let's say this shareholder has given at the beginning the money 1,000 million, that means 1 billion. So investment of this company is 1,000 million or a 1 billion. Right? Let's say 1 billion investment has been made by the shareholder. Now, and the management is appointed to run the business activities. Now it is come to the year end. Now year end, the shareholder would like to know what happened to my investment of 1 billion, right, which I explained previously. So then this 1 billion investment stated capital, or we call net asset, would be representing under the different assets. It may be under different assets. For example, it may be under the cash, it may be under the inventory, or it may be under the debtors, or it may be a net of debtors and creditors. So, now this 1 billion rupee is not as a standalone figure. It's in a different location or a different places. So, it's on the business is moving. So, in that circumstances, now shareholder wants to know where my money. To represent to the shareholder where this your 1,000 million money, that is why our father of accounting has introduced the double entry system and communication channel that is called finance statement. Right. Now, this management is preparing the finance statement and giving to the shareholder to communicate what happened to your 1,000 million money or a 1 billion money. And where those 1 billion as of now, maybe debtors, creditors, inventory, or a PP, investment, other receivables, prepayments, there can be different categories. So, where your money, the shareholders, management is going to say to the shareholder, your money, I would say one example, this finance statement contain one example, something called inventory, right. Out of the 1,000 billion, 50 million worth of money is in the inventory as of now. Got the point? You have invested 1,000 million money at the beginning. This 1,000 million might have gone up to 1,100 now, or it has come down if it is a loss making company. When you are representing, the management is going to tell to the shareholder, management is going and telling to the shareholder, out of this 1,000 million, it is 50 million in inventory. How we are going to say? Whether you are going to stand in front of the shareholder and say that 50 million in inventory? No. So, you have a mechanism to do. That mechanism is called double entry accounting. Right. So, that mechanism ultimately has given a result. One result is this out of 1,000 million, 50 million is inventory. Correct? I hope that you are clear, right? This is a very in-depth concept of for your level. Remember, business level 5, the business level 2 student to understand the finance statement assertion logically, it's very difficult. And also, if you go and ask from the even at audit firms, even experienced people, they do the things by practice, but they also don't know what is really meant by assertion. If you have the students who are, if your friends who are going to audit firm, just ask this question. If he says, I will tell you later, something like that, that means he doesn't know, right? Because it's very difficult to understand. So, I am taking, it is not simply as I am explaining now, but I am telling you this way to understand the logic behind the assertion, right? Now, management is presenting to the finance statement to the shareholder. In that case, one item is inventory, that is 50 million. Okay. Now coming to the difficult part. Okay. By looking at this shareholder 50 million, the shareholder can see 50 million is in the finance statement of financial position. මේ මිලියන 50 දැක්කහම shareholder තේරෙන්නේ මොකද්ද? Difficult concept. What the shareholder is going to understand by looking at this 50 million. Oh, by incorporating this 50 million as an inventory, what the management is trying to say? Again I am telling, now when මේ ඉන්න management එකේ ඉන්න manager මිලියන 50ක් inventory තියෙනවයි කියලා finance statement වල දාලා shareholders ලට දෙනවා. ඒ shareholder මම නම් shareholder මම මේ 50 million එක දැකපු ගමන්ම මට හිතෙන්නේ මොකද්ද? එහෙම නැත්නම් මම මේකෙන් තේරුම් ගන්නෙ මොකද්ද? අන්න ඒක තමයි assertion එක කියලා කියන්නේ. Right? By looking at 50 million, what the shareholder is going to be communicated. What the management is trying to say that looking at 50 million is called assertion. How that assertion, මොකද එහෙනම් මොනවද මේ 50 million දැක්කහම shareholderට හිතෙන්නේ මේ inventory 50 million කියලා නෙවෙයි. එහෙම නැත්නම් මේ 50 million inventory ඇතුළට දාලා management එක කියන්න උත්සාහ කරන්නේ මේ 50 million inventory කියන එක නෙවෙයි. There is a hidden meaning inside. There are several meanings in the inside of 50 million inventory that is not visible for everyone. That is not visible unless you learnt in that way. Now today is a new concept you are learning. It is not visible to everyone. Not visible to anyone. That hidden meaning is called assertion, right? So that means again simply I am telling you, when the management is trying to say that what happened to your money, represent into the including certain items into the finance statement according to our double entry bookkeeping system. So by incorporating one item, that is inventory 50 million, what shareholder is going to understand or what management is trying to tell to the shareholder, that is called assertion. So therefore remember, inventory is not an assertion. Inventory is not an assertion. Inventory is not an assertion. What is assertion? Inventory has a hidden meaning. That hidden meaning is called assertion. Otherwise, by looking at inventory figure, what the shareholder is going to understand, now I am going to tell you what the shareholder is going to understand. So if he is the, say Kamal is the shareholder, right? Kamal looking at the, right? So looking at the inventory 50 million, Kamal is going to understand what? Not inventory, right? Kamal is going to understand, right, existence of inventory. Look at here, existence of inventory, right? Then rights and obligation of inventory, rights and obligation of inventory, right? Then valuation of inventory, right? Completeness of inventory, right? And presentation of inventory, classification of inventory, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Look at here, it's very beautiful auditing, right? Very interesting. What's happening here? Management is trying to tell to the shareholder not the inventory. Management එකම inventory කියලා 50 million දැම්මට ඒකෙන් කියන්න උත්සාහ කරන්නේ මේ inventory කියන figure එක නෙවෙයි. මේ 50 million කියන inventory සත්‍ය වශයෙන් පවතිනවා. මේ 50 million කියන inventory අපිට අයිතියක් තියෙනවා. මේ 50 million කියන inventory නිවැරදිව ගණනය කරලා තියෙනවා. මේ 50 million කියන inventory සම්පූර්ණයි. අපි omit කරලා නැහැ මොකොත්. මේ නිවැරදිව ඉදිරිපත් කරලා තියෙනවා. නිවැරදිව classify කරලා තියෙනවා. Right? So therefore, when the finance statement include a 50 million inventory, it is not that 50 million inventory. All these things are virtually given to the shareholder. Or all these things are understood by the shareholder. No need to say this separately. No need to say these things separately. These are the things which are going to be understood by the shareholder. These are the things that is going to be given by the management. Now, it's generally, now you will think like this. Then all the shareholders should be should be auditors to understand this thing. No. All the shareholders no need to have this knowledge to understand what it is and all. This is the impression of this is the feeling of the shareholder. The shareholder feels these things are complete or these things are included in this inventory figure, right? And these are the things shareholder need, and these are the things shareholder feels, and these are the things shareholder think on this particular line item. The same concept management. These are the things management is going to give. These are the things management should highlight, or a management should basically to give it to the shareholder or represent. Right, I am sure that you are clear, right? So this is, it is not easy that way I am explaining. It's a little bit a big concept, but I told you in a very simple way for you to remember. Now we'll come to that mango example, right? Now, so then hereafter you should think, when you look at this financial statement, this has many things: inventory, debtors, creditors, deferred tax, retirement benefit, property, plant and equipment, investment, right? Stated capital, retained earning, capital reserve. There are many. If you look at the P&L, expenses, income, tax expense, administrative, finance cost, finance income. If you look at the disclosure, going concern, subsequent to it, there are many. So then, looking at that figure or the line item, remember that line item is not the one is going to be represented by the management or going to be understood by the shareholder. There are some hidden meaning on each line item. That hidden meaning is called finance statement assertion. Right, I am sure that you are clear. So now you may be thinking, like, you may be having a question like this. Let's say, ඉතින් අපිට කමක් නැහැ නේ, ඒක මැනේජ්මන්ට් එක එකක් කියනවා, ෂෙයාර් හෝල්ඩර්ස්ලාට එක අපිට මොකටද, අපි ඔඩිටර්ස්ලානේ, අපිට මොකටද මේක? ඒක මැනේජ්මන්ට් එක හිතේ තියා, මැනේජ්මන්ට් එක එකක් කොලේ කියලා හිතේ තියාගෙන ඉන්න වෙන එකක්, මෙයා කොලේ එකක් තියලා මෙයා හිතාගන්න වෙන එකක්. ඉතින් අපිට ප්‍රශ්නයක් නැහැ නේ කියලා කෙනෙක්ට හිතෙන්න පුළුවන්. අපිට ප්‍රශ්නයක් තියෙනවා. ඔඩිටර්ස්ලාට ප්‍රශ්නයක් තියෙනවා. මොකද්ද ප්‍රශ්නේ? අපිට ප්‍රශ්නේ එන්නේ මෙන්න මෙහෙමයි. අපේ රස්සාව මොකද්ද? What is our job? Our job is to, right? Our job is this. Our job is to give an opinion to the shareholder on what? The finance statement prepared by the management. Our job is to give an opinion to the shareholder, on finance statement prepared by the management. Right? In that case, what we need to think, what we need to check is what is needed by the shareholder. Got the point? What we need to check here is not that what we need, not that we feel better to check. What is needed to be checked by the shareholder? Since shareholder cannot come and check 100. Now let's say the shareholder can come and check the 100% transaction throughout the year, then there is no requirement to have auditing principles. There is no requirement to have audit. Since the shareholder is not interested to come and check on that, so the shareholder has given that duty to the for a chartered accountant. Then as a chartered accountant, what I am fulfilling, what you are fulfilling, what auditors are fulfilling? The requirement of the shareholder. Then when you are checking this finance statement, now come to the point, when you are checking this finance statement, the shareholder doesn't bother about this inventory 50 million. But shareholder is not going to understand it as an inventory 50 million. The shareholder is going to understand 5 hidden meaning or a 6 hidden meaning of inventory, not the inventory. So the shareholder is going to understand 6 hidden meaning of inventory. So then, don't you think that our duty is to check not the inventory 50 million, but this 6 item of this? Don't you think? Our duty is not to check this 50, because what we are going to check is, what is needed by the shareholder. If that is the case, auditor has to check not the inventory, but hidden meaning of inventory, right? That is why auditors come into the place to understand the finance statement assertion. So therefore, remember, when we are checking the certain items of the finance statement, we are not checking that particular line item. We are not checking inventory, We are not checking the creditors, we are not checking the debtors, we are not checking the going concern, we are not checking the income. What we are checking? We are checking particular assertion of the particular line item. You got the point? I hope that you are clear with that. I am sure this is not easy things to understand. So what you should do is go back to this video again about 10 minutes back. Go back please, and 2 times you listen what I was telling, and try to develop your own thinking. What is really meant by financial statement assertion? So try to get into that. So then it will help you to not only for the BL5 examination but also for going forward for a CL1 as well as the SL1. Right. So now I told you auditor is going to check not the inventory, there are hidden meaning of inventory. So that is called assertion. Right. Now if I am linking to this mango example, I told you අඹගෙඩියක් උඩින් බලලා අපිට හොඳයි කියලා කියන්න බෑනේ. ඒ වගේ ඔඩිටර්ස් ලටත් මේ ඉන්වෙන්ටරි කියන 50 මිලියන් එක ඕවර්ऑल දැකලා මේක හොඳයි කියලා කියන්න බෑ. මේක කපලම් බලන්න වෙනවා. මේ වගේ කැලි වලට කපලම් බලන්න ඕන. Right? So therefore auditor has to go to the assertion level and cut and see whether this is correct or whether there are problem or whether there are material misstatement in the inventory or any other line item. I hope that you are clear. So I am going to summarize again. The financial statement assertion mean what the management is trying to say or what the shareholders are going to understand by looking at the finance statement line items. Those are further divided into the sub item. So those are called assertions. Why those are important for the auditor? Because auditor is done a role on behalf of the shareholders. So therefore auditor has to check what the shareholder required. Right? What shareholder requires. So in such circumstances, auditor does not come and check the line item of the financial statement, but auditor comes and check the assertion of that particular line items. I hope that you are clear the very basic explanation which I made for the finance statement assertion. So I could explain you in a very technical manner, but in the technical manner you won't understand anything, right? If you look at in audit firm language, it's a high level, little bit more high level language, but I think this is more than enough for BL5. If you put this foundation and if you read the study text now, my mango example and the way I explain you, if you can think, you can write any answer, right? Okay, so now I am coming here, so remember, so now then you will be feeling like this. Then inventory there are 6, for inventory I told you 6 assertion. Inventory there are 6 assertion, debtors we have 6 assertion, creditors we have 6 assertion, income we have 6 assertion, disclosures we have 6 assertion. You will think that how many assertion to be remembered? You will be wondering now, one item to remember 6 into 20 audit subject එක දාලා දුවයි එනවා. Hey, not like that, right? Remember, so now I am going to tell you this finance statement assertions are categorized into 2, right? Are categorized into 2. I am going to delete here certain thing. While keeping this. Right. So if you can remember, this was discussed in a previous webinar as well. In any financial statement, look at here, in any financial statement, only you have 3 things. Whether you will agree or not, I don't know. One is account balances. Right. Other one is transactions, other one is other one is disclosures. Look at here. Any financial statement, look at here, any financial statement can be categorized into 3. What those? Account balance, transactions, disclosure. Let's say the inventory, debtors, creditors, let's say those things. All these are account balances. Inventory, debtors, creditors, all the items that are in the statement of financial position, all the items that are in the statement of financial position are account balances. Right. Then all the items that are in the P&L or we call income statements are transactions, events, transaction. So can you remember in your A level you were learning Ganadanu Sahasudivim. All these transactions are events under the income statement. Right. And disclosures can be everywhere under the notes, accounting policies and everywhere. Right. You see, any finance statement you have account balance, transaction, disclosures. Right. So here all the statement of financial position, balance sheet items are account balance, transactions are our income statement. So now therefore this is further divided into let's say all three items I am going to divide in like this, because this disclosure part can be linked to this, right, can be linked to income statement or can be linked to account balances. Accordingly, any set of finance statement, if you look at all these finance statement, statement of financial position, statement of comprehensive income, statement of changes in equity, statement of cash flow and the notes, this is called finance statement. This finance statement can be categorized into two, right. One is account balances and related disclosures. Right. Other one, transactions and related disclosures. Right. Any set of finance statement prepared for any purpose in this world, only two things are there in this finance statement. One is account balances and disclosures, account balances and related disclosures, and transaction related disclosures. Right. So therefore, remember, now I am coming to my topic. If you look at all the finance statement account balances, all these account balances comprise same assertion. All the line items of the statement of financial position, all the line item we call as account balances have same assertion. Inventory existence, inventory rights and obligation, inventory valuation, inventory completeness, inventory presentation, inventory classification. That is inventory assertion. If you look at the debtors existence, debtors rights and obligation, debtors valuation, debtors completeness, debtors presentation, debtors classification. If you look at the deferred tax existence, deferred tax rights and obligation, deferred tax valuation, deferred tax completeness, deferred tax presentation and deferred tax classification. You take another example as you like. Let's say stated capital, let's say trade creditors existence, trade creditors rights and obligation, trade creditors valuation, trade creditors completeness, trade creditors presentation and classification. So now, even though same terminology is there, but with the way we look at it is practically different. Again, then debtors lagi තියෙන assertion ටිකයි, creditors lagi තියෙන assertion ටිකයි, එතකොට property plant equipment assertion ටිකයි ඔක්කොම එකයි. ඇයි මොකද? ඒක ඔක්කොම account balance එකක් ඉඳලා. හැබැයි the way we look at it practically different. Now for example, existence of inventory word is correct, but existence of inventory and existence of debtors concept is same, but practically the existence are differently addressed. අපි ඉන්වෙන්ටරි සත්‍ය වශයෙන් පවතිනවාද කියලා මොකද්ද කරන එකයි ඩෙටර්ස් සත්‍ය වශයෙන් පවතිනවාද කියලා කරන එකයි අපි දෙකක් නේ. හැබැයි concept එක එකයි. Right. So now this is for account balances. Now I am going to the second one. This is for account balances. Second one, transaction. Right. Transaction. So that means transaction mean basically The transaction mean income statement item. So this is a statement of financial position basically. This is income statement and they are related disclosures. Because disclosures we are covering into the inside now earlier. If you look at the early auditing standard books, not now, the previous books, you can see this. There was a separate another item called disclosure, but now in the new auditing standards, 315 new standard is combined. That is combine all the account balances and the transaction and related disclosures, right? So if there is a income statement, the assertion that we are looking at is different. Let's say income statement mean revenue, other income, finance cost, finance income, administrative cost, distribution cost, finance, this other financial item, income tax, deferred tax expenditure, something like that, or other comprehensive income item, all these. So basically that also has a 6 assertion, any line item of the income statement, right? Number 1, important one, occurrence. Occurrence, ativima, occurrence. For if it is a transaction, if it is a event, that has to occur. If it is a revenue, it has to be occurred. If it is expenditure, it has to be occurred, right? Occurrence. Right? The number 2, completeness. Completeness, right? Number 3, cutoff. I will explain later, right? Cutoff. Number 4, accuracy. Number 5, classification. Number 6, presentation. Presentation, right? So now, occurrence, completeness, cutoff, accuracy, classification, presentation. So these all items, these all fixed assertions are related with the income statement line items, right? Income statement means P&L item. Occurrence කියන්නේ ඇතිවීම, සම්පූර්ණත්වය, cutoff. What is meant by cutoff? Cutoff, for you to learn, cutoff is like this. Let's say, to understand the cutoff is like this. Let's say now on 31st December 2000, let's say 31st March, our auditor's new year, 31st March 2021, let's say, රෑ 11:55ට යනවා ෆුඩ් සිටියට. අද රෑ 11:55ට ෆුඩ් සිටියට යනවා. මොනවා හරි බඩු මොනවා හරි ගන්න. ගිහිල්ලා සල්ලි අපි තමකෝ මොනවා හරි ඕඩර් කරන මොනවා හරි කියලා සල්ලිත් ගෙවලා. No, we will forget about the food city. Let's say like this. 11:45 you order pizza. Pizza එක කරලා දන්නේ නැහැ. 11:45ට pizza order කරනවා. 3:30 එක. ඔය pizza ටික ඔයාට අපි pizza order කරන්නේ 11යි online payment කරන්නේ. Online payment එකක් කරලා 11:45 you paid the money also. But 12:15 only the pizzas are delivered to your home. Now tell me, this pizza, delivery of this pizza, Pizza Hut company, it is a revenue, no? Whether this revenue should be recognized in the financial years of 2019-20, let's say, right? 2020-21. Actually, it should be other way around, but I am okay now. Let's say this is 31st March 2020. So now we are in the date of 31st March 2020. 31st March 2020 night on 11:45 you order a pizza, but you get this order by 12:15 or the next day. So now as far as the Pizza Hut company is concerned, this revenue should be taken to 2019-20 or 2020-21, right? So now, you know, according to the revenue recognition standard SLFRS 15, the revenue with contracts with customers, so the revenue will be recognized at the point of control is transferred. At the point of control is transferred, right? So the control is transferred at which point? Whether 11:45 or 12:15. Shall we say that we don't get this proper pizza properly, or that bike fellow gets an accident and then accordingly we don't get pizza. Can they recognize the revenue even though they have not delivered the pizza to us? They cannot recognize. So therefore they have to wait for the next financial year, 12-15 next financial year. So you can recognize the revenue on this financial year only. It depends on the condition. I just gave you example, but there are a lot of other factors also need to look at when you are recognizing the revenue, but just I took as an example. So in these circumstances, right, this is called cut-off time. Cut-off time. So this auditors need to be very much careful about this cut-off, because most of the clients, most of the companies, they go wrong. Cut-off. So therefore, this cut-off time is very important. The items that are relevant to the 1920 should be recognized properly in 1920. Items that are relevant to 2021 should be recognized in 2021. Right? So this is called cut-off. So now, cut-off is the next assertion that we need to aware. So in order to check this one, just for your knowledge, in order to check this one, what the auditors are doing, so they check the last 10 transactions or 5 transactions of this year, and the beginning next 5 transactions or 10 transactions, we call the documents and we check, we call cut-off testing. That is for your knowledge. So that is how the cut-off is being checked by the auditors. Okay. So cut-off, then the accuracy, classification and presentation. Now, so the account balances and the transaction, this is how the assertions are going to come. So as far as now this has to be remembered with you, there is no doubt. You shall remember what are the assertions in relation to the account balances, and what are the assertions in relation to the transaction. As far as auditors' procedures are concerned, now remember, when the auditor is going to check something, auditor doesn't check that particular line item. Auditor doesn't check the account balances, auditor doesn't check the transaction. Auditor checks the particular assertion of the such item. For example, inventory. So auditor will be checking the existence of inventory, not the inventory. Auditor will be checking the rights and obligation of inventory. Auditor will be checking if it is a revenue, occurrence of revenue, not the revenue, occurrence of revenue. Right? So similarly, you have to now, the next stage, after knowing this finance statement assertion, now you have to, next step is, you have to learn our audit procedures we have to do for each assertion level, not to the line item. That is the next level understanding we need to get. Right? I hope that you are clear with this. Now, what I was trying to explain you that day, if you can now, if I go back to the previous webinar which I did on risk assessment, at that time I told you like this. I told you like this. Auditor's response, there are two. One is finance statement level response and assertion level response. Assertion level response. So if you can remember, right? So now finance statement level, assertion level. Now you know. Finance statement level mean entire finance statement. Assertion level mean, now you know, assertion level mean not the inventory level, it is going beyond the inventory level. Now I think we are very clear with that. So if you come to the presentation here, in this presentation, so I have given the definition given in the auditing standard. Finance statement assertion are the representation by management, explicit or otherwise, that are embodied in the finance statement as used by the auditor to consider the different type of potential misstatement that may occur. It's a long definition, but you will not be able to remember this definition, or will not be able to, you can't understand anything by looking at this definition. But if you can remember that my mango example and the way I explain, so if you can explain the මේ වගේ concept ආවට පස්සේ අමාරු දේවල් වල කරන්න මොකක්ද දන්නවද මේක හොඳට අහගෙන මේක ඉගෙනගෙන කාට හරි නොදන්න කෙනෙක්ට පැහැදිලි කරලා දෙන්න. මම යන්දා වගේ කොලේ ඇදලා කියන්න උත්සාහ කරන්න. ඒ කියන්න උත්සාහ කරන වාරයක් ගානේ Tamanට තීරණ ප්‍රවණතාවය 120කින් 30කින් වැඩි වෙනවා. පැහැදිලි කරනකොට තමයි ගොඩක් ගැටලු වෙන්නේ. ඒ නිසා හැම වෙලාවෙම අධ්‍යාපන කාරණාවලදී හැම වෙලාවෙම අනිත් අයට උදව් කරන්න. You try to help to others, because there will be so many students who are not sometimes not facilities to watch this webinar, also some students. So please help them for them to also to understand certain concept and then to read the attend to the examination. Please help to others. This always will return you back with so many things, right. So same thing which I explained you, assertion about account balances and related disclosures. So same thing which I explained you, this is from the study text, you can go and see the study text. And then assertions about the class of transaction and event and related disclosures, same way, occurrence, completeness, accuracy, cutoff, classification, presentation. So same thing which I explained you.